I found out I'd been demoted to expense line 47 2 minutes after unclogging the office toilet with my bare hands. Not because it's in my job description. I'm not facilities. I'm not even supposed to be in the building at 7:14 a.m. But when you're the only VP left who knows where the breaker panel lives and how to stop a toilet from vomiting blue sanitizer onto the executive floor, you show up early and roll up your sleeves. That's when I heard it, my name, not spoken but numbered. "Just trim line 47, said a voice from the speakerphone, echoing off the walls of the boardroom I was mopping outside. She's a redundancy wrapped in HR compliance. Laughter, male, confident. One voice I recognized from the quarterly roundtables. Another belonged to the interim CEO, Mr. Let's Make Our Talent More Agile, who once asked me if menopause was a brand campaign. I left the mop, walked down the hall, and sat at my desk like my spine wasn't made of gunpowder. Pulled up the budget sheet, scrolled to line 47. They hadn't even changed the label. VP Ops Julia Lane. Next to it, a penciled suggestion to sunset by Q4. Sunset me like a sad yacht. I should have cried. I didn't. I renamed the Wi-Fi instead. Board Wi-Fi line 47. Then I logged in and changed the password. Not because I wanted revenge, because I wanted fun. By 9:00 a.m., they were locked out. No signal, no files, no Zoom link for the investor prep. You'd think billionaires could hotspot from their phones. You'd be wrong. Especially when the firewall flags any tethered device as foreign riskware and blocks it automatically, courtesy of the patch I personally greenlit last month. Julia, came the first ping. Can you check the Wi-Fi? I typed. Which line item is that under? Silence. A follow-up ping. We didn't mean anything by the budget talk. You're invaluable. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened a new tab and typed in an address I hadn't visited in 6 years, my father's, because I had a feeling he remembered what they did in 2017 when he was line 12. My father used to say, they don't fire people like us, Julia. They erase us. Slowly, quietly, like we were never in the room. In 2017, walked into that same building wearing a tie I got him for Father's Day and left carrying a cardboard box filled with 10 years of unscanned brilliance. No send-off, no plaque, just a resource optimization bullet buried on page 47 of the Q3 memo. And guess who signed it? Current chairman of the board, George Lyman. Aka Mister, we're all a family here, who once made Dad lead an all-hands call while on morphine after back surgery. Sunsetted my father and paved over his name. Now I'm line 47, and the circle jerks on itself. So when I pulled up outside his bungalow, paint peeling, wind chime tangled in spiderwebs, I didn't knock. I opened the door like I was still 17 and had just failed calculus. Except this time, it was their failure I brought home. He sat at the kitchen table with a half-burnt Pop-Tart and a chessboard he never played with anyone but ghosts. Hi, he looked at me like I'd broken something sacred. You got fired. Worse, I said. They reduced me to a cell in Excel. His jaw tensed. He didn't say I told you so. He just nodded, reached under the table, and pulled out a red file folder with a sticky note. In case they come for you too. Inside, schematics, memos. A timeline of decisions they made, decisions he made, that they buried, rewrote, and rebranded under newer, shinier names. IP theft, patent suppression, data attribution edits. Things that looked like admin cleanup on the surface but boiled down to one thing. They cashed his brain and gave him bus fare. He'd kept everything, every meeting summary, every version document, even a voicemail from George Lyman stuttering through a cover-up. My hands shook, not from fear, from clarity. I hadn't walked into a war. I'd inherited it. Why now? I asked. He sipped lukewarm coffee, eyes still on the chessboard. "'Cause they think you'll play their game," he said. "Make them think you're moving pawns while you're rearranging the table." By midnight, I was back in the office, alone, barefoot, hoodie zipped to my chin, uploading every document from that red folder into a secure drive the IT audit team didn't even know existed. A relic from the migration freeze in 2020. My relic. Then I scheduled a fake systems maintenance alert for Friday. Why Friday? Because that's when the board meets offsite on their precious Wi-Fi, and I planned to make line 47 speak. Friday came like a loaded gun with no safety. By 7:45 a.m., I was already in the server room, bathed in that eerie blue light only mainframes and existential dread can emit. My badge still worked. They hadn't cut me loose yet. Line 47 was still active, at least on paper. Fake maintenance alert went out at 8:00 a.m. sharp. Brief network optimization window. 9:15, 11:30. Board Wi-Fi may experience intermittent access. The kind of corporate nothing speak that means everything's about to catch fire. And catch fire it did. At 9:14, just before they were supposed to pitch sustainable operational velocity to a venture capital firm dumb enough to still wear matching lanyards, the screen sharing died and Slack glitched out. Then their Chrome tabs showed nothing but a 403 error and a spinning pineapple GIF I embedded just to be petty. 10 seconds later, a new screen auto-launched in front of every board member's face. Projector, laptop, tablet, phone. Black background. White text. Simple, clean, and surgically cold. Line 47 would like to speak. They couldn't close it. Couldn't tab out. I disabled the taskers through a ghost script embedded in their login profiles last month under the alias Wellness Plugin exe. Then the documents started rolling in, PDFs, recordings, a silent parade of shame. Itemized receipts of what they'd done to my father, with timestamps and initials. And more. Employee salary audits buried after diversity promises, gender pay gaps they spreadsheeted into rounding errors, pensions that mysteriously vanished during transitions. Every single item sourced, labeled, watermarked, and mirrored in a private archive, with the decryption key sent to 3 journalists and one very bitter ex-CTO named Lisbeth I knew still had an axe to grind. And just when they thought the horror parade was over, I queued up the voicemail. George Lyman. Mid-panic. 2017. We can't let R&D know Harold flagged the numbers. Get Julia to rewrite the slide deck. She's fast. She won't ask. I had asked. He lied. I rewrote the lie. And now it was playing on a loop in a walnut-paneled conference room with 3 CEOs and 0 internet. The screen faded to black. New text appeared. Line 47 recommends immediate silence. Anything you say may be quoted at the shareholder meeting. Outside the building, I sat in my parked Prius, sipping gas station espresso like it was a communion ritual. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. Message, turn it off. We can talk. I smiled, then turned on the coffee machine remotely and triggered the second wave. Second wave wasn't digital. It was personal. You see, corporate empires don't crumble because someone leaked emails. They fall when the wrong people see those emails at the right time. That's where Lisbeth came in, former CTO, exiled during the Agile Revolution, when they scapegoated her for the failed merger with Synthwave Tech. What they didn't know? Lisbeth had screenshots, off-site backups, and an almost biblical vendetta, and a podcast. At 10:07 a.m., she dropped a bonus episode titled Expense Line 47, How a VP Hijacked the Truth. It wasn't just about my father or me. It was about every employee they chewed up, renamed, buried beneath optimization charts. She read those documents out loud, her voice smooth as cyanide. She named names, quoted George Lyman's voicemail, played it twice. Meanwhile, back in the boardroom, they were sweating in their monogrammed button-downs, Wi-Fi dead, windows blocked by reflection film, phones pinging like slot machines having strokes. Investors were texting. HR was spiraling. Legal had gone full fetal. At 10:45, George himself called my personal number. No assistant, no secretary, just raw, quivering fear barely cloaked in authority. Julia, he breathed, let's be reasonable. Reasonable is not a language spoken on line 47, I replied. You're ruining us. No, George, you did that. I'm just forwarding the receipts. He paused. Then, quieter, what do you want? There it was. The only honest sentence that man had spoken in 20 years. Not an accusation, not a threat, a confession. What did I want? Not money. I already redirected my severance to a whistleblower legal fund just to twist the knife. Not power. I'd seen what it did to good people. No, I wanted something simpler. Truth and humiliation. Open the slide deck labeled Apology Draft PPTX, I said. Sign every page. Especially the one that starts with, we apologize to Harold Lane, former director of R&D, for theft, retaliation, defamation. Publish it by noon, or wave goodbye to your stock options. Click. I didn't wait for a reply. Instead, I turned my attention to the elevator feed. Yes, I still had access and watched as one board member tried to escape. The elevator lights flickered, then stalled. Because guess what? Line 47 controls the badge system too. Elevator 3 stopped between floors like it owed me rent. Inside, Randall Keene, CFO and master of the fiscal pruning initiative that nearly gutted our paid parental leave. He once told me emotion has no place in budget decisions, right after slashing the grief allowance for bereavement. Now he stood in that glass and steel coffin sweating bullets in a shirt so starched it could have filed for assault. Maintenance has been notified. The screen chirped inside the elevator, which was a lie. I was maintenance today. Back on my terminal, I zoomed in on his face via the security cam. His jaw clenched. He pushed the emergency intercom button 3 times. Useless, because the voice that finally spoke wasn't building security. It was mine. "Hello, Randall, just checking in. How's line 47 redundancy looking now?" He flinched. Actually flinched. That same man who once told me my father's termination was a necessary evolution in our organizational DNA now looked like he was being mugged by ghosts. "Julia," he said hoarsely, "you've made your point." "Oh no, sweetheart, we're still in the thesis paragraph." I let the silence hang. He started pacing. His watch buzzed, probably alerts about Lisbeth's podcast trending on Reddit. Twitter was already on fire. Hashtags #line47 leaks and #expense this, both rising like yeast on meth. Then I cut into the main building feed. Projectors flickered to life. Every floor, every conference room, every open laptop. Even the stupid glass hallway art installation with the LED quote from Steve Jobs. They all displayed one image, a photo of my dad, Harold Lane, in his lab coat, right before the board yanked his pension and rewrote his patents under team contribution agreements. Under the photo, in bold white text, "Remember the minds behind your margins." The building went still, like it had stopped breathing. And just as HR finally tried to override the system, too late, bless their hearts, I played the final voicemail. A conversation between George and Randall, recorded on a burner phone left intentionally in the boardroom closet during a post-layoff whiskey session. "George, Julia's smart, but not strategic. She won't risk her reputation. Randall, then she's the perfect person to clean our mess. Guilt makes great compliance." Laughter ice clinks at the exact moment the audio ended. Randall's elevator resumed movement, only to open on the lobby, where camera crew and one very patient labor reporter were waiting with mics hot and notebooks open. I texted Randall one word: smile. At 11:03 a.m., the building turned into theater. Randall emerged from the elevator blinking like he'd just been birthed into scandal. His tie had wilted into a question mark, and his smile, God help him, looked like a botoxed confession. The camera crew didn't shout. They didn't have to. The reporter, woman with a voice like a velvet scalpel, simply raised her mic and asked, "Is it true you falsified internal diversity reports to inflate quarterly ESG scores?" He hesitated. In that moment, Randall Keene, a man who once screamed at me for using a semicolon in a presentation, whispered, no comment. The mic turned to the next board member, just arriving. The CFO's wife. Surprise. She was also on the board, appointed after a neutral nomination committee vote. She didn't get to no comment, because every mic in the lobby blared my voice again, live this time. "Would either of you like to address the 12 patents you helped erase from Harold Lane's portfolio before assigning them to a shell company registered under George Lyman's cousin in the Caymans?" The gasps were real. Phones came out. Employees watching from upper floors started filming. Security guards stepped forward like he might unplug the system, until his earpiece crackled with orders from legal, telling him to stand down. Upstairs, George Lyman was in his corner office, pacing so hard he knocked over his 6-figure bonsai tree. He tried calling me again, 4 times, left voicemails that started calm and ended somewhere between begging and existential mewling. I didn't answer. Instead, I opened the internal email system, drafted a message from George's official account, because yes, I still had admin access, and queued it for 12:01 p.m. send. Subject: Statement of Accountability from the Board of Directors body. A full confession, written in plain English, bullet-pointed with attachments, including the page my father had highlighted in red. Internal note: consider Lane's severance contingent on silence. His daughter is watchable. Oh, I watched back. And now, it was the entire building. The fire alarm tripped at 11:27 a.m., not from smoke, but from someone manually pulling it. Evacuation. Smart move, cut your losses, run, except I had one more move left. As they filed out past the portrait wall of former board chairs and fake philanthropists, a new plaque had been mounted by the exit, under a spotlight. Expense line 47 not removed, just reassigned. Access revoked, she wrote the system. Beneath that, a live counter of every share of stock sold since 10 a.m. It ticked like a heartbeat. At 12:04 p.m., the email detonated. The subject line, Statement of Accountability from the Board of Directors, hit every inbox in the building, every investor contact, every press partner, and thanks to one quiet BCC to an activist hedge fund, every shareholder with more than a 3% stake. The contents? Brutal. Line by line. It exposed the reallocation of pension funds, the inflation of ESG metrics through fake hires and timed terminations, the hostile silencing of R&D minds like my father. It even detailed how I'd been used as a compliant fallback, stable, loyal, pliable, to sanitize internal documents under the pretense of streamlining language. Each bullet came with a hyperlink to evidence. Not Google Drive, not Dropbox, used a blockchain timestamped archive, legally irrefutable and journalist wet dreams certified. The final page read, "This confession is submitted in lieu of denial. Any attempt to refute the facts above will trigger full release of the backup archive, which includes names, dates, bank accounts, and NDAs previously thought to be permanent. Signed, George Lyman, Chairman, because I forged it. No, because he did sign it. An hour before send time. Turns out when your legacy, your retirement yacht, and your face on a Harvard Business School plaque are all hanging by a cat's eyelash, you'll do anything to keep the rest from unraveling. Including calling me from his personal number, voice shaking like a wet leaf, whispering, "What happens if I say yes?" And I told him, "Then you become the fall guy history might forgive. Say no, and you become the monster history remembers." He clicked the doc, scrolled, signed, then asked, "What happens to me after this?" I said, "Nothing I haven't already survived." By 12:16 p.m., the company's internal stock dashboard cratered. Not a dip, a cliff dive. Notifications poured in from legal, finance, PR, compliance, Slack channels erupted. Some cheered, some begged. A few just sent emojis, popcorn, fire, clapping hands. But it was the messages from employees that cracked something inside me open. I thought I was crazy for what I saw in 2019. Thank you for proving I wasn't. I worked under your dad. He changed my life. You just gave him justice. Expense line 47 is a damn hero. I sat alone in the server room, watching the chaos unfold on 6 monitors. My hands were trembling, not from fear, from the sheer, unholy high of finally being heard, not as an entry on a balance sheet, not as a compliance mule, as the storm they should have never underestimated. And still, I wasn't done. Because outside, in the fire drill chaos, George Lyman had made a mistake. He showed up in person. He stepped out of a black town car like he hadn't just signed his reputation into a woodchipper. Aviators on, collar crisp, as if he still believed dry cleaning could fix legacy rot. People parted around him, not out of respect, but like smoke from a burning building. Phones raised. Whispers slithered like wildfire. That's him. That's the chairman. Someone actually hissed, and I was already waiting in the courtyard. Not in a suit, not in heels, in sneakers, jeans, and the exact same t-shirt I wore the day they promoted me and forgot to tell me about it until 3 weeks later. Company culture is not a strategy, faded across my chest like prophecy. George spotted me, walked over slow, like a man rehearsing an apology that hadn't aged well. "You win," he said, trying for humility but landing somewhere between constipation and PR crisis. I smiled, just barely. "This wasn't a contest," I said. "It was an autopsy. You just didn't know you were the corpse." He chuckled. Actually chuckled. "You always did have a flair for drama." I leaned in close. "No, George, you just always had a talent for forgetting women with sharp memories." His jaw twitched. "Where do we go from here?" I nodded toward the building where HR was now physically locking glass doors, and a young intern was ripping his nameplate off the executive boardroom. "You go home," I said. "You disappear. Take your exit package, donate your bones to ethics case studies. If you're lucky, Harvard won't revoke your lectureship. As for me," I pulled a folded piece of paper from my back pocket. "My resignation letter." He blinked. "You're quitting." "I'm exiting," I corrected, with dignity. "Something your spreadsheets don't measure." I left it in his hand like a receipt for services rendered. As I walked away, my phone buzzed. A new email, subject line, "Offer, interim CEO terms attached." From the board's emergency advisory group, which, surprise, had been quietly reassembled from the women, engineers, and whistleblowers they'd previously exiled. I didn't reply. Instead, I walked to my dad's house. Knocked this time, opened the door and looked down at my empty hands. "No box?" he asked. "No need," I said. "I didn't lose anything today, they did." We sat in the backyard under the same maple tree where he used to fix broken radios. Birds chirped. Somewhere, Lisbeth was probably trending on TikTok. And back in the office, the Wi-Fi blinked back online. Password: Harold 47 lives. Thanks for joining the fun, you office survivors. Subscribe for more switch-flicking drama. Let's make your former coworkers sweat.